Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim, and we talk about horror movies on this show, and this is our final episode of 2017. This is going live on New Year's Eve.
Ooh.
So, last year we did New Year's Evil. This year we thought, well, we need a New Year's movie, but we don't really know any other ones off the top of our head. Uh, Tim vetoed Terror Train for some reason, so that left us looking. You did, yeah. I said Terror Train's a New Year's movie, and you said no, let's not do that. And I went okay, and then we looked for other things. So we ended
Sounds
up
like me.
with a British movie called Bloody New Year.
Which you don't really understand the bloody part until you realize it's British.
Well, there's blood in it as well. To be fair, like you could take it literally as the blood. Yeah, just funny. I never realized this was British before we did it. But what's funny is I'm familiar with the director of this. I actually way back on my DVD days, I remember Anchor Bay released a box set by this director. And this movie wasn't in it, but he did actually have a couple of decent movies in there. They weren't amazing, but they were kind of okay. They're very sort of low budget, schlocky, kind of 70s and 80s horror stuff.
Okay.
But what is Bloody New Year? We'll start spoiler free, of course, and we'll warn you before we go to spoilers. So the plot of this movie is basically five. They're supposed to be teenagers, I think, but I mean they don't look like teenagers at all.
Yeah.
It's I don't even know if it's New Year's and present day. Actually, they never really specify.
It doesn't seem to matter.
Yeah, but they're at a fair, and the four British kids like meet up with an American girl, and they kind of like they're friendly, but they run to these hoodlums who terrorize one of them. And because the guys kind of fight back, they end up chasing them around the fair and into the haunted house and all the rest of it. And eventually, our heroes I say heroes loosely, might I add. Eventually, they get away on a boat. They've got a boat and they're going sailing, and they're all out kind of relaxing. But
you know how when you're running away from someone and you just jump into a little sailboat and to get away.
I can't fault that. They're in the boat, and the boat starts to sink. They get a hole. So they end up on this island, a small island that's got a hotel on it. And there's no one there, at least not at first. But strange things start happening. We'll say it's haunted. That's maybe putting it a bit too simply, but we'll say it's haunted. And they're on this island, and they're just kind of trying to survive. The hoodlums eventually show up, of course, and they kind of, get involved in the haunting shenanigans. And
You can definitely see why J.J. Abrams cites this as one of the inspirations for Lost.
very good. So that's the premise of the movie. I feel like that's it. Tim,
Yeah.
do you have any idea what happened in this movie?
Not really.
I mean, beyond what I just said, of course, beyond them going to the island,
Right.
like beyond that, once stuff starts happening at the hotel and around the hotel.
So what I'll say about this is I do actually think there were some interesting kills in this.
Okay, okay.
But other than that, the storyline really makes no sense, and if it did, it's way too boring to really grasp.
Oh, the the movie is so boring. It is like painfully.
Yeah.
But I watched this in 4 sittings. It's a 90-minute movie, and I watched it in like 20-minute chunks.
Yeah, it's definitely a rough one to get through. If there was a compilation of just like the death scenes, like a little 5 or 10 minute thing, it could be like, oh, like this is kind of cool. But yeah, other than that, like the characters are super generic. You don't really get any sense of who.
There's only one that sticks out because there's one that's American, but the rest are all English.
Yeah.
So she sticks out a little bit just based on that. That's
Yeah.
it. And
And then,
honestly, there's one or two laugh out loud moments, and those kind of perk you up a little bit. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it's just really dull and boring, and it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Things just happen. It's one of these supernatural movies where things just keep happening randomly. There's no rules, there's no boundaries or anything like that. Everything just happens at random, and it's
yeah.
no fun to be had. The only thing I kind of liked about the movie, in theory, at least in idea, at least in concept, was kind of the backstory as to why the island was like this. I kind of like that. You get a little bit of backstory. I'll talk about that in spoilers for anyone who cares.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's a little interesting, but it feels like stuff took way too long. Like the opening at the fair felt like it took forever.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I assumed that the whole movie was going to be at the fair. Like I thought part of it was going to be like just them at this fair getting chased around by these people.
I don't think there's a single section of this movie that does not drag on in some
Yeah.
way. Because it feels like they're wandering around the hotel waiting for something to happen for a long time.
Yeah, and I feel like sometimes if a horror movie is like centered around a like specific holiday or something, sometimes you kind of give it a little leeway if it's like, oh, it's kind of cheesy, but hey, you know, it's a fun movie to watch on Christmas or whatever. And it's like this, it's like, yeah, the New Year stuff doesn't even like really come into play at it. It's not like, you know, at least like the movie we did last year, New Year's Evil, like at least that was like a fun, like, oh, hey,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is cool, you know, theme for the day.
Well, I think with any New Year's horror movie, what they really should always focus on, and this is something that New Year's Evil did focus on, would be the idea of the countdown. Because that's what you think of when you think of New Year's. You think of counting down to midnight. So I think there should always be an element of time in a New Year's horror movie. At least that's what I would say. That'd be my tactic of tackling one, if I ever did.
What I think we should do with this episode is once once we finish it and we know how long it is, we should release it like, you know, however, you know, many minutes before, so it can coincide with the new year, so people can actually count down while watching the episode.
That's a wonderful idea. If only everyone who watched the Screams episodes started watching them the second they went live.
Well, it's a good incentive to all our listeners who I'm assuming won't be doing anything other than just sitting at their computer waiting for the new episode to come on.
On New Year's Eve, yeah, sure. That's what they're all doing on New Year's Eve. They're not drunk at all at that time. Oh dear. So spoilers. I mean, there's nothing to dance around. Honestly, like I have nothing. Like if I'm being spoiler free at all, I'm saying no. Everything's random. There's no like. Honestly, all we have to talk about is how it ends, what the backstory is, and some of the weird moments that happen. So full spoilers. So Tim, did you enjoy the scene where two of the characters run from a sitcom laugh track?
That was interesting.
Literally, it's, by the way, most of this movie takes place in broad daylight, right? And you've got this couple, because there's like two couples, boy girls, right? And one of the couples is walking outside, and like the bushes that are close by, and the foliage start to shake, and you hear like a laugh track from like a sitcom. There's like just all this canned laughter of the audience. And then it moves to another bush, and then they start running away from it, and there's just this canned laughter following them. It's really weird.
You know, in a better movie, that actually might not be something that bad. Like if the point of the movie is that, oh, like they're in this really weird, bizarre place where like, everything is just over the top and crazy and doesn't make any sense. Like maybe okay, but that's not really this movie. Like.
Nope.
I don't know. It's very strange. Like it feels like there is supposed to be a reason for the stuff, but I don't know. You don't really get it.
How about the scene where the Middle Eastern man just appears out of nowhere, and then after he kills one man by scratching his face, he then shrinks into the electrical outlet, maybe? Like there's this visual effect on the screen where he kind of shrinks in, as if he's getting into a bottle, as if he was a genie almost, get into like an object on the floor.
It's funny because when you said that, the first thing I actually thought of was something I just saw in Twin Peaks, because that's much more relevant in my mind, where someone scratches their face. But
you know what's really funny about that, Tim? Is I almost thought you were talking about something else, but you can't be because you've not seen it yet.
Oh yes.
That's how crazy Twin Peaks is. So yes,
But yeah, when he said scratching their face, I was like, wait, that wasn't a Middle Eastern guy. And I was like, oh wait, I'm thinking of Twin Peaks. Okay.
yeah, no, because he's got the headdress on and all. Like it's
Yeah.
just randomly there's just a Middle Eastern man in the room, and then he like sucks into like a hole of some kind or something. It's a really stupid looking effect. There's a lot of moments where the editing makes it feel even weirder than it actually is because it won't flow as an edit all that well.
Yeah. So how is all this stuff happening? It's I guess the island. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it has something to do with the island being like stuck in time because of some experiment they conducted.
Yeah, so in 1959, New Year's Eve, 1959, get into 1960. This hotel had a party. The ballroom was full of people celebrating the new year, counting down to midnight, blah 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 blah. And the military were in 1959, might I add, were testing stealth technology on a plane that would completely make it invisible, and it did so by magnetic things, or I don't know, I can't remember the exact explanation, but
Yeah.
it was messing with the laws of physics, and the plane crashed on this island, and it stuck the entire island, and that's why like some of the ghosts, when you see them, have got burned faces and whatnot, but they're in this sort of weird time loop thing, and that's why at the end of the movie, like, or 5 of the characters, not the American girl died in the boat on the way off the island, so she's like outside looking in at the party. But you see that our 5 teenagers are now like part of the ballroom celebration. They're doing the conga line in the middle of this party that we saw at the start of the movie in 1959. So they're part of the stuck time loop now. Which, this is the thing, the idea of this for a movie, I think is fantastic. I feel like you make a movie about an island that's stuck in a time loop after this disaster, that could be a fantastic science fiction movie or a science fiction horror movie.
But yeah, it doesn't sound like the actual movie. It doesn't sound like that premise because when you say that, you would think like, oh, they go into this hotel and you see a bunch of these people, but it'd be like, hey, why are they dressed like they're from the 50s or whatever? And they're talking real weird, and that could be interesting. But instead, it seems like they have a very, very flimsy premise that they use to basically do whatever they want. Because like why are people like coming out of the film screens and getting attacked with film projectors and stuff? Like,
why does one of the characters basically turn into a deadite, like a possessed version of herself? Why is there like monsters like covered in like leaves like coming up from the ground? Why is there like there's so many just random from different horror movie like ideas that just happen for no reason, and then you get the laugh track. In fact, speaking of things taken from other horror movies, I do not think that this is an accident that this is 1987. It's 3 years after the original Nightmare on Elm Street. There's a scene in an elevator where like an entity comes from behind a wall and pushes it out.
Oh, right.
Kind of like that. That's one scene in Nightmare on Elm Street, except in here it actually grabs the woman and it like sucks her into the wall, and she kind of like just goes into the wall with her. This effect looked terrible because unlike Nightmare on Elm Street, when the hand started coming out of the wall and it's like pushing behind, and obviously same in Nightmare on Elm Street, they've changed the wall into like a fabric where they can push out like this sort of rubbery sort of thing, and it looks quite good. In this movie, like, it's so well lit, like it's so bright and that you can see everything. The material they're using for it to stretch looks so cheap that it feels like it changed completely, as opposed to like actually being this supernatural thing. I don't know, it just looks really bad. It really took me out at the moment.
This movie feels real cheap, and I don't really want to say that that's necessarily a bad thing, because there's a lot of really great horror movies that work on super low budgets, but it's just that the filmmakers are so good they find ways to work around that, or to use that to their advantage. It's like nothing looked really good.
The motto on set for this is, oh, we can't afford it, do it anyway.
Yeah.
That was the motto on set for this movie, I think. I have very little positive to say about this. I mean, there's some stuff in here that's so wacky and random that maybe you can get a chuckle out of it. Maybe if I was watching this with other people, maybe I'd have had some fun joking about it. On its own, it's just really dull and boring to watch. Like, the pacing's atrocious. The characters are not interesting.
Like some of the like if I take it out of context, like some of the stuff I kind of liked. I did think the when the person came out of the movie that looked kind of cool, and there was like a kill scene I liked, where someone got like their head like twisted around and stuff. Like there's little moments like that where I was like, oh, this looks cool, but
Yeah, it was okay.
again, it's like in terms of the movie, it's like, well, that might have been a cool 30-second scene, but now I'm just going to be bored again and looking at characters I don't care about again.
How about the scene where the one guy, like the woman's like the Deadite version, if you will, and the one guy like punches on the stomach and his hand just goes right through her stomach and
Oh,
comes out the back or back. There's just so many
Yeah.
random weird moments, and anytime there's like a fight scene, it's just kind of goofy and the editing's really bad. Of course, the three hoodlums that they were chasing them at the fair at the start of the
Oh, yeah.
movie eventually show up on the island, and they're basically just all killed within minutes, like a minute of each other. It's very
Where
quickly.
where is this island? Like how far
It has to
is
be,
it?
yeah, it can't be that far from the mainland. Like, it's not that, like, they weren't on the boat that long.
Yeah.
I know, it's weird. By the way, those hoodlums, when they introduced them at the start, they're in the, I forget what you call that particular ride, the spinning,
The like tilt whirl? Is that
uh,
like I think it reminds me of like I think that it's the teacups ride at Disneyland.
yeah,
but-
it's basically that, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think Tilt-A-Whirl's the bigger one that's you're up, you're actually,
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but they're terrorizing one of the girls and the guys sort of fight. But anyway, after they've chased them a bit, before they can make their big escape with their boat and their car, the three hoodlums all line up, and at the same time, in perfect unison, as if it was a musical, they all reveal chains around their hands.
Oh yeah.
And it's like this perfectly in sync moment where it's almost like they'd rehearsed that. Like, no, it's just all do it
Yeah.
at the one time. That's really goofy, really stupid. Oh god. But honestly, the thing I really want to get across about this movie is how boring it was.
Oh yeah.
Tedious.
Yeah. It's a dragger.
Tim,
Yeah, this is,
it's not often I say this on this show, but I would rather have been watching The Boy.
I agree, but to be fair, I think that about almost every movie. Um, this is a yeah. If you want like a real test of will, just watch this movie with your phone like 6 inches away from you, and just see how long you can go without picking it up and looking at it.
That's the test. That's the endurance test. I think eventually I was watching this on like my second monitor whilst I was doing things on my computer on the first monitor because it was just too boring. I had to at least be typing something or some like or just whatever. And at the end, like by the time we get to the end, like almost everything that happens is just trying to stop them from leaving, and they're almost leaving. And the one guy, like it's him and the American girl are leaving, and he turns back because he thinks one person's still alive, and he immediately just gets grabbed in the beach and like sucked down into the ground. And it's like, well, of course that's what was going to happen. Why didn't you think of that? I don't know. It's just full of so many I feel like, and a lot of the stuff that happens when they get to the hotel is basically. Or the maid who's actually dead will like appear for a scene and then disappear.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that going on.
And again, like the New Year's stuff never really comes into play.
No, it's just at the end when you find out that they've been put into the time loop at this party. It's a New Year's party in the past that they're stuck in now, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I think we're done. This is actually a quick one. I have almost nothing else to add to this. There is no plot besides what we've said. There is nothing else going on in this movie except that one guy's trying to impress the American girl, and then the other couple, the girl really wants to have sex everywhere, and the guy's like, "Oh, we can't do that. It's inappropriate." But that is it. That is the extent of the characterization in this movie.
Yeah, I
That's
agree.
That's it. It's done. So I guess that's bloody New Year. We don't even hit the 20-minute mark in this recording yet, Tim.
Wow, really?
Yeah, that is how little we had to say about this. This was really bad. Luckily, though, it's the end of the year, so we can wish everyone a happy New Year and promise that we'll see them in 2018. We have a couple of updates going forward for the show, just shaking up the schedule a little bit. Now, okay, negative part out of the way. There are going to be slightly less episodes for for a while, just slightly. Basically, the way it's going to work now is there'll be an episode every week that is consistent, and that'll be an older movie or something like that, and that'll be your one episode a week. However, the Patreon vote episode does not count in that. That'll be an extra one when that happens. And if there's a new movie in the theatre, like Insidious 4, which is coming up in the next week or so, that'll also be an extra on top of it. So you'll get 2 episodes when there's a new release, or we're doing the Patreon vote. But otherwise, it'll be one a week just now, because this poor boy Tim over here is trying to buy a house, and he's trying to arrange a wedding, and he's very busy. So we're letting him have a little bit of free time. He's out of the dungeon.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be a very busy year, but yeah, I mean, we'll still have double episodes from time to time, and I mean, obviously, October we'll still do the million episodes that we normally do.
Oh, don't promise them a million, Tim. They'll actually think they're getting a million.
And if there's if anything special comes up, if there's a sudden new release that we didn't know about that just came out of nowhere that we got to do, we'll double it up too, or maybe if it's a special occasion
It's worth mentioning the first half of this year was also one episode a week for the most part. This is not this is not unknown to the show. We've just been doing 2 for a while because it was nice to try and fit in extra things, but.
Yeah, I think we got into a nice groove, with doing 2, and I think we're just kind of scale back a little bit, but I think you'll still get more episodes and stuff as things go on. And
one last other change actually, along with this change to the schedule, the weekly episode, the weekly sort of, we'll call it old movie episode, will now be up early on Patreon every week. So that's a thing that's going to be happening. It's not really a big difference. You're still going to get at least 5, if not 6 episodes a month, so it's not that much of a huge leap of a difference. But just a slight reduction for a little while. But hey, so that's just that. And as for anything else, there's not really much else to.
We still got to do ratings for the movie.
Oh, of course. How could I forget? How could I forget to rate Bloody New Year? Tim, what would you give Bloody New Year out of 10?
2.5.
Oh, that was quick. You've been thinking about
that. there's a few good kills, and maybe some interesting ideas, but just it's nothing done with the story or the characters or whatever, and so there really isn't much to go by.
That's fair. I think I'll go with a straight 2. Yeah, it's not the worst thing ever, but it is really, really, really boring.
Next year we should watch Terror Train.
You know what, Tim? I'm holding you to that. If we get to next year and you're like, oh, I don't want to watch Terror Train, you regret saying that now, don't you? You're like, oh, I should have watched Terror Train. What was I thinking? Oh my god.
I might be somewhere next year.
Seriously? We're gonna have to do the best of the year stuff weeks early or weeks late because you're off doing New Year's things.
Actually, yeah. Actually, we probably are gonna have to do that.
My God,
I'll be
ruining the
in
schedule.
a whole other country, if you can believe it.
Tim, I've told you once, I've told you a million times. Alaska's not a different country. It's still part of the US.
It's debatable. Let's see. Pretty sure that's partly Russia.
Well, with the current president, giving his best friend forever, shooting parts of the country to here's a birthday gift, Vladimir. Here, have Alaska. I don't even use it that much anyway. Take it. It's fine.
Yeah. So what do we have any other changes coming up in the new year? Anything else people should know about?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so. I remember anyway. Hey, so you're getting 2 next week because is it next week or the week after? Whatever whatever week Insidious 4 falls on, you get 2 that week. Ah dear. But yeah, that is us. That has been probably one of the shortest episodes of the year. But you know what? That movie was next to nothing. So, well, here we go. So, by all means, if you've somehow seen this movie I doubt it, but if you have somehow seen it, by all means, let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel and the show, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. And you can do that over there. There'll be a link to that in the description, as well as other useful links and some such stuff. Hope you've enjoyed the content in 2017. We will see you in 2018. And I've got nothing witty to say. I want to have something important to say because it's the end of the year. It's the last episode of the year. It's a big moment.
I was gonna say Merry Christmas, but that's a little late.
I just had to key my keyboard by accident. It made a noise. Oh, this is a shambles. Oh my! We're going out in the worst possible way, Tim. This is dire.
Happy Halloween.